What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to do a 1-year owner review of my Supercharged MR2. So this video marks two occasions. First off, the fact that I've had this car for 1 year now, and it has been a crazy action-packed year with this car. Lots of ups, lots of downs, all worth it though, you guys will see. And then the second thing is, it also marks my 1 year on YouTube. So I just wanted to say thanks to everyone. Like, when I made my first video, I mean, more than anything, it was for myself to have a video diary, and I've come to really enjoy these videos. But more importantly, the fact that people are following along and building the community is really crazy to me. So I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I plan on, making videos still. I mean, I really do enjoy it, and hopefully you guys keep liking the videos and stick around. Now on to my MR2. First thing I want to get out of the way is the fact that I call this car turbo despite the fact that it is supercharged. And I get this question constantly. Why would you call it that? The reason's pretty simple. It's actually in reference to a Disney kids movie. So I thought I would pull up a little image of it. As you guys can see here, the snail is similar color to this car. In addition to that, the snail has a big attitude and little package, which is why this car is named in reference to that movie. So this car started life with a 5 SFE, which means it's an NA chassis. It now has a supercharged V6. So it is a J32A2 Honda V6 with an M90. So it's something you'd find on like a Pontiac Grand Prix. On the dyno, the car made about 300 at the wheels. I also forgot to mention the car does run meth injection and the stock J series tranny. So that means it has a 6-speed limited slip differential. First thing is first, I know probably one of the biggest questions is maintenance and what did it cost? Well, my initial buy-in on this car was $360. I know that seems unbelievable, but I won this car in a raffle. It's kind of like a whole it's a whole thing in itself, and it's a crazy backstory. But obviously since then I've put a lot of work into this car. So at this moment I have about $6,000-ish into this car. That's on top of the 360 and not including things like insurance and fuel and whatnot. So in the grand scheme of things, it's actually really cheap because just as an example, if I went to a shop and said I want a turnkey 2GR swap, I think I'm realistically going to pay anywhere from like $10,000 to $15,000. So the fact that I'm only $6,000 into this car is a pretty good deal in the grand scheme of things. Now in terms of maintenance, that's a different thing. I would say that this is a very high maintenance car, but I'd put a little asterisk next to that for 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is pretty simple. This is actually an older car, so things to wear. So you got things like the ball joints, end links, tie rods and stuff like that. They were pretty bad on this car. Suspension bushings. As one example that you can visually see is the plastic under trays. These are all cracked and everything like that, and they don't really hold on too well anymore. Reason number 2 is pretty simple. A lot of the work that was done to this car was done very poorly in my opinion. So one example is that like the seats were bolted directly to the floor with no reinforcement, which is a big safety issue. Another thing is like the exhaust here, which is the original exhaust that came on the car. As you can see right here, there's actually a little hole there in the exhaust because the welds were too hot and just melted through. Or at least I believe that was the reason. So I'm not a fabricator and I fully admit that. So if someone has another reason, let me know. Regardless, there is a hole in the welds. Now reason number 3 is, well, I knew I was going to put my touches on the car. So one example is the rims. So the reality is I could have used the old rims that came on the car and I actually think they look good, but I wanted to make sure that my touches were put on this car. Now I will say, if I take all of those things out of the equation, let's say the swap was done right and the car had been taken care of, the maintenance would have been little to none. So in terms of the engine itself, all I've had to do is change out fluids and stuff like that. There has been no issues with it. It's literally just everything else. So from the engine mounts breaking, the exhaust having the hole / being too loud, the wiring to the cooling system, it's all been a lot of stuff. But like I said, I take that away, the engine itself has been superb and it's been worth every freaking headache. So this car absolutely rips. So we're gonna go take her for a cruise right now. Now first off, I apologize for the racket, man. This car is super loud. Between the wind noise, the engine, and all the road noise, woo. On long drives, I actually wear earplugs because I don't want to get any hearing damage. Now, one of the cool things about driving this car is the attention it gets. So like when I pull into a gas station, the look really stands out. But then people see the big old blower sticking out of the hood and they're like, what the heck's going on with this? They know that it's not stock. It's a great conversation starter. Now let's talk about the suspension. So when you consider what this car is, it's comfortable, all right? I put that in quotations because if you compare this to something like a Cadillac, you're gonna be like, this sucks. But if you consider this thing has aftermarket suspension, the engine mounts are considerably stiffer than stock. It has bucket seats. It's very streetable. So I've driven this thing about an hour and a half, autocrossed it, drove an hour and a half back home. So round trip, that was about 200 miles. Was I tired by the end of the day? Absolutely, but it was actually bearable, if that makes sense. Let's talk about the power now. It's absolutely everywhere in this car. So the power actually peaks up at the top. It's like a turbo car, which is really odd. I think it was tuned like that on purpose to avoid breaking stuff. So this car was dynoed and makes 300 horsepower, just 300 horsepower, which I know most people would be like, that's not a lot, but this thing weighs 2,600 pounds. It doesn't need a lot of power. You know, one of the nice things about a car like this is that anytime I want to go, all I have to do is a quick downshift and she goes. This car, man, it's just such a visceral experience. I feel really planted and connected. I mean, with the seats and how raw it is, I know everything that's going on. The steering helps as well. It's actually a power rack that's been depowered. So very, very direct. I know what's going on. It's a quicker ratio than the manual rack, which I really like. The downside to that though is that in the like a parking lot, I have to be going, otherwise it's complete pain to turn the wheel. Before we head back to the garage, we are doing one last pull. Oh my God, I'm gonna slow it down. It's very easy to get in trouble with this car. Holy shit. It brings out my inner child, man. I'm so lucky. I get to experience this every time I drive in this car. And the thing, this was on a whim. The whole reason I entered the raffle to get this car was because my brother got me that first entry. Now that we're back home and we've driven the car, I hope you guys can definitely see why I call this thing turbo. It is an absolute animal. I mean, such a small package, but so much attitude. I think it's a very fitting name. So I can honestly summarize my last year with this car in two thoughts. The first thought is this car is absolutely magnificent. It is a crazy, crazy experience every time I drive it, just because of how connected I am with the car, and then the noises and the pops it makes. It is fantastic. The second thing is all the backstory behind it, how I won it in the raffle, ended up being in less than ideal condition, and I've since done a bunch of work to it. It's been a huge headache, but completely worth it just because of how this car drives and honestly how cheap I'm into this. I mean, the fact that I paid $360 initially, and at this point I only have about $6,000 into it, that is a fantastic deal all day long, because the reality is this car is probably like C5 performance money, or in the ballpark of performing like a C5 Corvette, but at a fraction of the cost. Or you can compare it to like a Lotus or something like that. Either way, it has been amazing. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and more importantly, being a part of this last year. Just kind of watching the journey I've had with this car. As I've mentioned for the millionth time now, because I'm like a broken record player, it has been like filled with ups and downs. It's it's pretty crazy. But anyway, stick around. Next week we got a garage update, so we're going to be doing some cool things, or telling you guys about some cool things. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next video.